Hello. In this lecture, we are going to discuss physical geography of East Asia. We are going to discuss landforms, major rivers, climate, and major environmental issues. Landforms. We are going to separately discuss landforms of China, Japan, Korea Peninsula, and Taiwan. Landforms of China. North China. We can divide North China into several landform regions. Northeast China Plain. This area, you have fertile floodplains of several local rivers. And also you have a region surrounded by mountain ranges here. A problem of this region is short growing season because of its northerly location. Now we move to here, North China Plain. This is mainly the Huanghe or the Yellow River's floodplain, an important agricultural region since ancient times. And here we move to the west, the Loess Plateau. Loess Plateau is covered with thick layers of loess. Loess is a fine-grained dirt. Large area of this region is covered with very thick layer of loess. Loess Plateau is formed in geological times. The dirt itself is fertile, but is loose in texture. It's very susceptible to erosion when you have heavy rain or river run through the region. It can generate very severe erosion. So this is a major source region for the silt and the sediment of the Yellow River. Now we'll move to the north, the Inner Mongolia of China. But to a great extent, the situation is very similar in Mongolia as well. The entire region is highland and desert, and the Gobi Desert is located between Inner Mongolia and Mongolia here. Gansu is a province of China. Here you have a highland, and then you have high mountains. In between is the long, narrow passageway, a corridor. This corridor connects East China with Northwest China. During historical times, this is a strategically important passageway. South China. In South China, we can also see several landform regions. Here in the central and the lower reaches of the Yangtze River basin, you have several large lowland area basins and Great Lakes. Also, you have a delta here, the delta of the Yangtze River. These are all important agricultural regions. Then here you have the Sichuan Basin. You have this floodplain of several local rivers surrounded by mountains. In the south, you have mountains, hills, and small and medium-sized rivers forming river valleys. Here you have a relatively long river, the Xijiang River, forming an important agricultural regions in South China. Southwest Plateau is here. you have the Yunnan and Guizhou plateaus. West China. In West China, you have two important regions. Xinjiang in the northwest. You have basins and plateaus separated by high mountains. Basins here and the plateau, and they are separated by high mountain ranges. Within the basins are the deserts. And here in the southwest, you have Tibet, and the major feature here is Tibetan Plateau, the world's highest plateau. On the surface of the Tibetan Plateau are the mountain ranges and the plateaus. And this is origin place of many important rivers in South Asia, in Southeast Asia, and East Asia. Also on the surface of the plateau, there are many salty and freshwater lakes. Landforms of Japan. In terms of a physical size, Japan is slightly smaller than California, and Japan is an island country. It has over 4,000 islands. The four major islands of Japan are Hokkaido, Honshu Island, Kyushu Island, and Shikoku Island. Japan is a mountainous country, and there are lots of rugged mountains. 80% of Japan is covered with mountains. The mountain here form the backbone of the Honshu Island. There are also many small and isolated plains, and these are the important agricultural region. Japan suffers from very frequent earthquakes. It also has a lot of volcanoes, also have hot springs. I believe many of you have seen TV programs where the monkeys in Japan have learned to enjoy hot spring water during the winter time. Landforms of Korean Peninsula. Korea has a lot of islands, so 3,500 islands, mostly in the south and the west. So those small islands during historical times really serve as a natural barrier against the potential invaders. On the east coast, you see you have very sharp cliffs and inlets and rocky inlets. On the west coast, you also have a well indented coastlines, and those places form very good locations for natural harbors. Korea is also largely mountainous, and 70% of the peninsula is covered with mountains, especially in the north with many high mountains. But with mountainous areas, you have the advantage of having minerals that are important for industrial development. Korea also has many dormant volcanoes and crater lakes on this island, crater lakes along the North Korea and China borders. Rivers are small and locally significant. You have the river here around the Seoul area, the Han River. In the North Korea and China border, you have the Yalu River and the Tumen River. In terms of a plain, in the coastal areas, you have a lot of plain for agricultural development. It's slightly in South Korea there are more plains than in North Korea. Landforms of Taiwan. As island, you see the backbone of the island is this mountain in the central and east location of the island, a very rugged mountain, but also very beautiful as well. The plain on the east coast extremely narrow, but you have relatively wider plains on the west and in the north. So those are important regions for agricultural development. There are some small island groups off the west coast, and between Taiwan and mainland China, right here, you have the Taiwan Strait. Major rivers. Major rivers in East Asia are mainly concentrated in China. There are two major rivers in China. The Huanghe, or the Yellow River. And this river originates from the Tibetan Plateau, and his middle course runs through the Lez Plateau and go all the way through the North China Plain, emptied into the ocean. The entire length of the river is 3,395 miles. It's the world's sixth longest river. It is the cradle of the Chinese civilization, especially the lower and the middle and the lower reaches. When the river runs through the Lez Plateau, it has a problem of erosion. It carries a lot of silt and sediment with it, and it brings those silt and sediment to the lower reaches of the river and deposit them there, and forming the North China Plain. Of course, there are also some small local rivers which also contribute to the formation of North China Plain, but mainly it is because of the Yellow River. As you can see in those pictures, the erosion in the Lez Plateau is really severe as a result of rain, and the land will cut into a highly fragmented shape, and then this river carried large amount of silt, become really muddy, and literally is yellow. Now, the Changjiang is also a major river in China. The Changjiang is what the Chinese call it, and Yangtze is actually the last segment of Changjiang before it emptied into the East China Sea. But the Westerners call the entire Changjiang the Yangtze. So now we just call it Yangtze as well, so that you guys know which river I'm talking about. The Yangtze River also originates in the Tibetan Plateau, and first run to the south, then to the east. The entire length is 3,915 miles, is the world's the third longest river. So both the Yangtze and the Huanghe run east-west in general. So especially for the Yangtze, the water amount is larger, so it can carry some larger boat. So it's navigable. So it's a major east-west waterway. But you seem to need a north and south channel for transportation, and that's exactly what the people did in ancient China. They built this Grand Canal to connect the Yangtze River Basin with the Yellow River Basin. So they built this Grand Canal during the Sui dynasty between 581 to 618. and over 1,000 miles. The middle and the lower reaches of the Yangtze River is extremely fertile because of the southerly location provide very favorable precipitation and temperature conditions that make this very conducive for rice growing. So this is extremely important agricultural and economic region of China.